Y'all, it is technically too early for me to be recording anything for you because I am outside of my operating hours. I'm still a gremlin, but this message came through last night and it's so important. It's actually been building up for a few weeks at this point. A lot of people in my life have kind of looked around and they're just like, why are you not freaking out about like the economy and what's coming and all these different things? And I realized that one reason that I'm not freaking out is because I lived through a recession. Specifically in 2008, my business was only 5 years old. And 5-year-old business for somebody in their early 20s is just like, it didn't have a lot of traction, but I was feeling good. I was, I was in my groove, in my grind. But I wanted to talk to you today about recession proofing your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not, it is important for you to have some ways, some strategies to deal with what might be coming, what's going on. So this hit me really hard because yesterday I saw a news piece that said that approximately 106,000 Black women had lost their jobs due to current circumstances, largest single demographic drop in unemployment rate. And so what happens if you are either preparing or if you're one of those folks? So first of all, in my coaching work, one of the things that I note with people that I mentor, coaching, whatever the case is where I'm advising, is that sometimes when those bad things, it's all relative, happen, they're sometimes the best things that can ever happen, because particularly if you happen to have a dream, a goal, a wish, something that you want to act on, when you have a devastating thing go down where you lose your job or something changes, or you have a relationship breakup and it's just the most devastating thing in the world, sometimes the only way to go from there is up. And so I like to experience those changes as opportunities. Like, what can I do from here? What's the thing that I was scared of doing anyway? Things are kind of crappy now, so let's just get on with it. So whether or not you have lost a job or, don't have a business or starting a business, there's room for everybody to recession proof their life. So the first thing I would say is barter, okay? The way that I got through 2008 was that I was making approximately 85% of my income in trade. I was bartering literally everything. So what ended up happening was, like, I was working with nonprofits and artists, like startups, people who wanted to start businesses but didn't know how. And none of those demographics had a lot of money, right? And especially with the small nonprofits, I was working with things like theaters and little groups that started like pottery shops for children, etc. Just like people who didn't have money. But what they did have was something to trade. Honestly, I was doing that for the first 8 years of my business. I was 85% trade. So I had all the goods and services that I could possibly imagine. When I wanted to go to a fancy function, I would do some promotional work for some local boutiques that had really great clothes that I couldn't afford at the time. I was a model at one point, right? So they would let me borrow clothes and then take them back, right? And sometimes the things were permanent trades. So I had all my massages, I had my mani-pedis, I had baked goods, I had all manner of things that people created or sold that I exchanged for my services. So I advise you to barter everything, and don't be embarrassed or shy about saying, well, hey, can I trade this for that? Don't be. I still have, in some cases, some barters established with really established businesses who have in abundance something that I want. My coaching prices went from, I think in the early days, I was maybe $15 or $20 an hour. And now my corporate rate is $1,000 an hour, right? So I'll do like $100 an hour for folks whose companies aren't paying for their work. But the range went from $20 to $30 an hour to $100 to $1,000 an hour. And so some folks don't have that in liquid cash, but they do have something else that you might want. So never be afraid to say, hey, I'm trying to save money. Is there something that I could trade? So this means taking an inventory of what you have to give. What do you have that's available in abundance, right? So for me, it's time. For me, it's expertise. And then I just have to slip in here that the other reason I'm not worried about a recession now is because if I could survive a recession in 2008 when I was in my early 20s and didn't have much, I can handle whatever comes now, because no matter what gets stripped away at any point, even if it is liquid cash, you cannot take away the experiences. You cannot take away what I've learned in that amount of time. So don't be afraid, just strategize. So take an inventory of what do you have to give in abundance. Like, I've done things for trade for ceramic mugs that people make that are really cute. I've traded my artwork for other people's artwork. I've accepted artwork for my marketing services. The sky is the limit, because remember, barter existed before money did. We invented money. We decided that greenbacks had value. So know what you have to give, know what you need and are willing to accept. And the other thing I would say is this. I learned when I was in business school about a barter bank, and I would love to see this pop up in more communities. Free idea for someone who wants to make it happen. I want to see like barter banks, blessing banks happening in local communities, because if I have something to give in abundance and you have something to give that I don't need, what if I make that available to the next person? So what if you could go to the barter bank, right, and get what you need without having to trade what you have to that person? So if you make wicker baskets and they don't need a wicker basket, but what you need is a new blanket for your baby and you don't know how to knit, you can get a blanket, you can give a basket, but whoever needs the basket gets the basket. Do you see what I'm saying? There's so many ways to be creative. So the other thing about this is you might also have like existing things. So you need to inventory not only your skills and what you can give away or trade in terms of your time and your acumen, but also look at the stuff that you have. We are one of the biggest consumer societies that has ever existed, and we have all bought a ton of stuff that we absolutely do not need. So take a look at what you have. What could you trade that you physically have and maybe don't need? So again, make things available potentially to people who need them, even if you don't. And that's just kind of like paying it forward. And don't be afraid to look at the way that you shop. We need to stop consuming with the big boxes and the big corporations. Whatever you buy, try to buy it local, try to buy it small, use the various marketplaces, Freecycle, your local thrift shops, community pop-ups and yard sales, etc. That keeps money flowing within the community and keeps it out of these giant capitalist structures. The next thing I would invite you to do is privilege experience over stuff, right? Experience over money. Because stuff eventually, often ends up in the landfill, falls apart, you forget that you have it, you give it away. But experiences are things that people can never take away from you. So if there's a recession, and I love this particularly when I was raising children, I didn't like the idea of every time there's a gift-giving holiday to just hand them more plastic and more things. I wanted to create for them experiences that they would remember. So think about how you can spend time in nature. Think about travel, even local travel. There's so much adventuring that you can do within your own town. There's so much adventuring that you can do with a car or a train. You don't even have to go far, because a lot of people don't want to travel international right now for reasons. So think about what you can do that is experiential, that is not necessarily just accumulating more stuff. The other part of experiential is self-care. Can you indulge in self-care activities? Can you gift self-care activities? Can you barter self-care activities, right? What can you give? What can you get in return? Again, my facials and all the different things that I did in those first 8 years of my business, I didn't pay for. I traded them for the most part. So think about that as an opportunity to keep money within the system and also stop accumulating so much stuff. The next thing I would invite you to do and consider for recession-proofing your life is invest in yourself. So rather than putting your precious money, your precious resources out into the world and accumulating more stuff, if you're gonna spend your money, think about taking a course, think about building skills, think about exercising, taking care of your body, right? One of the things that becomes really important if money becomes scarce is your health and well-being. If you can over-index for your health and well-being, you'll be more resilient, both physically and emotionally, should things get difficult. So investing in yourself, whether it is building skills, building muscles, there's all kinds of wonderful, even free ways for you to get more information about how to regulate your emotions, things like that. Those are great investments. That's a good place to put your money if you have to, but certainly time. There's a lot of research you can do, and don't sleep on ChatGPT. ChatGPT can teach you so much stuff for free or for freer. The other thing I would suggest is volunteering and anything that brings you in community. So one of the biggest tricks of capitalism was isolating us and telling us that we have to have our own home. And every time if you have your own home, you have to have your own fridge, your own microwave, your own ladder, your own screwdrivers. And if we spent more time in community, so cohabitating, like house sharing, land sharing, even if you're not in a romantic relationship, getting property or sharing property with your friends, your family, intergenerational, however you want to do it. guess how much less people have to work when we are sharing the expenses of one piece of property, one domicile, one small community that lives together. That's one of the tricks they played on us to make it so that people had to have 2 and 3 jobs in order to survive. The other thing about being in community is if you volunteer, if you find places to use those gifts that you have, like one of the most important learning laboratories that I ever had for the businesses that I built was volunteering on nonprofit boards of directors. Sure, I went to business school, but I learned more volunteering on boards of directors for organizations whose missions I believed, that I valued, that I loved. And so if you do that, you become part of the community, you become connected within the community, and it's incredible how many different kinds of resources can open up for you if you are giving of your time and showing the kind of talent and heart that you have for things. All of a sudden, when there's opportunities for money to be exchanged, you've placed yourself in a position where you have added value to the community, and if you have something the community needs, when there's money, they're more apt to pay you because you've shown that you have interest, that you have skill, that you have passion, and that you're a beloved member of the community. If you don't have a job, you might think that volunteering is a terrible idea. It's actually not. It also it fills your heart. You get more than you give. It's an incredible cycle. And the other thing I would say is start a business. I know it sounds antithetical, but the data is out there. Like some of the most successful companies in the world started during recessions, during depressions. There's a little bit of an opportunist piece in there, but there is something about starting a business in a downtime. First of all, what I said earlier, like what do you have to lose if you've already lost your job or if things are already tight? If you can get investors, great, but you can start something small and you can start to refine that business model based on whatever resources are available. So if things are a little bit scarce, make your business model something that could be resilient in these times, because then when money opens up and recession slows down, you'll actually have windfalls, like things will go better. But take this time that is essentially downtime, maybe less resource time, and use it to create a business model that you can test out, that you can practice while things are interesting, right? You don't have anything to lose. It doesn't cost a lot of money. How to start and grow your own business. I'm going to stand that course back up. Sign up for my newsletter on Substack, and you'll get information when that comes out. But yes, you should start a business. If you have been thinking about one, if you've been considering it, now is definitely the time. The other thing is just take it one day at a time. We spend a lot of time borrowing trouble from tomorrow. We spend a lot of time using our manifestation powers in the wrong way, which is manifesting what we don't want by ruminating on what we don't want and worrying about what could happen. Don't worry about what could happen. Worry about today, one day at a time. What are you doing to build? What are you building? How can you make yourself more resilient? How can you expand today? How can you use the skills and the gifts that you have in service of community? How can you be more local? How can you be more embedded in community? Don't worry about the next week, the next year. That is a trap that will keep you in a low vibration and extract energy from you. And that's exactly what the capitalist system does to keep you powerless. So focus on what's happening now. The other one, I did a post recently about joining a CSA and or growing your own food. If you have any space at all, if you have land, grow food. If you've got some space inside your apartment in a windowsill, grow food. Because again, if the recession gets too wild, if supply chains get too out there, then being able to grow some food is a really important thing. And make food your medicine. This one is really important. So I was on several different medications, some that I had been on for many, many, many years to manage pain for chronic illnesses. I have now reduced 98% of my pharmaceutical medication intake. I now grow my own herbs. So learn, get some books, go to the library, talk to ChatGPT, and figure out what herbs you can use to manage whatever it is that you have to manage in your own body. It's absolutely incredible. The earth was always our first doctor. The earth has always offered medicine. Many of the pharmaceuticals that we use today are actually originally sourced through earth materials. But what we have with the pharmaceutical industry, which is another extractive, exploitative industry that's making us all sick and broke, they treat symptoms. They don't necessarily treat the cause, where you'll find that if you grow herbs and you make your own solutions to things, a lot of them actually treat the cause. They treat the problem, not just the symptom. I am a doctor, but I'm not that kind of doctor. Disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only. Always consult your physician, get a professional opinion. But these are some things that have worked for me, and they might be useful for some of you. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions or thoughts or strategies that you've engaged, let me know in the comments. Really really excited to help support people through these times. It is doable. We can do it, but we are much stronger together than we are apart. So the more alone you feel and the more you're isolating yourself, the more you need to lean into these things. Get in community, shop small, shop local, and invest in yourself. Take care.